Hi, everyone. This is episode one of Bad Managers, where I will be talking about some of the worst managers I've ever worked with, along with some of my friends and their experiences. And I'll also be providing some examples of horrible leadership, as it relates to current events or what's going on in the world as well. So let's get started. My first topic and one of the worst jobs I've ever had in my entire life was at this advertising company. And it was a print advertising company that I started with. And what's weird about it is even then, and this was back in 2012 or 13, maybe, and print advertising was had become outdated even then because this was post search engine optimization where a lot of companies were putting all their money into digital advertising like I said SEO, so wanting to make their company known on the first page of Google when you go to search keywords, or they would also put a lot of money into Google advertising, pay per click, things like that. So we had already moved into the digital world, but for some reason this company was still hiring. So anyway, I applied to it because the money was pretty good at the time and the insurance was great actually. I was really surprised. So I applied for the job. The reason why I applied for the job is because I was living in Miami Beach in Florida, and I wanted to move to Fort Lauderdale. And so this advertising company was kind of my gateway into moving into Fort Lauderdale, getting out of the beach, getting out of the service industry, so on and so forth. So I applied to the company, got the job. It was pretty easy. Actually, I don't remember any hurdles or anything getting the job, so that was great. So I start the job, the training begins. Right away, I start noticing just some weird things about this manager, and just his style of training was bizarre. So what he would have us do is we had to read a script. It had to be to a T, so you couldn't say anything out of the ordinary. Everything had to be read verbatim. So answering objections, everything. Verbatim, verbatim, verbatim. Okay, so that was fine with me. I'll just read the script, and if I don't get a sale, it's not my fault. I just read the script, so what's the big deal? So then I started noticing in the training sessions, he would say things to people. Like he said to this one lady, he said, maybe you would sound a little better going through the script if you dressed a little nicer, and then you would feel better about yourself. And so that was the first thing I noticed. I thought to myself, okay, well, we're clearly not supposed to be talking about anyone's physical appearance in a training session unless it's something that's really horrible. And this person wasn't dressed horribly at all. I don't understand what his deal was with her, but he just randomly said it, and I thought it was bizarre. And then he also fired someone in the training session because he said their voice was annoying. So no particular reason, just fired them, which was super weird. Anyway, so the training went on for about a week. I didn't get too much negative feedback or anything. I mean, he had to give every single person negative feedback, as I found that was his personality. So that was fine, whatever. We got through the training. Cool. I start the job, and it's okay. I'm, going through the motions, reading the script, going through my leads and whatnot. And then I come to find out we have to call the leads that they provide us. We're not allowed to source our own, which I also thought was strange. But I understand that happens sometimes. They don't want salespeople stepping on each other's toes. The way they did it was weird. So this was also super old school. So they would give you sheets of paper with phone numbers on them in the name of companies, and your job was to go through and you had to call and ask, who reports to who until you have to get all the way up to the chain of command to the decision maker. Okay, great. So that was pretty simple. That was the first call usually. You weren't necessarily going to get a pitch on the first call, although sometimes you did. So I started making calls. started pitching, whatever, everything's going fine. I finally get somebody on the phone that I can actually really pitch to. Almost 10 out of 10 of the times, you weren't going to get a sale on the first call. So I pitched to one client, and the way he had it set up is the manager, Joe was his name, he would call each person on the phone after they would get done pitching, and he would critique them. So let me just show you what the setup looks like. Let me show you the desk so you can get a good idea of what I'm talking about here. Okay, so this is what the desk looked like. So here's where he sat. Um, we'll just call him Satan. And then that was my coworker friend here, me. That was the door to get into the office. Some other lady who I'll talk about in a little bit sat here. There was another lady who had her own office because she was really good at selling. That was the training table. That was the office that Satan never used. And then here's where all the other people sat. They all have the same face because I really can't remember what they looked like. Um, he was cool. They were cool. She was cool. I mean, I think everybody was nice. I just don't remember every single person. But that's what the layout was. So imagine you get done with a pitch. He calls you on the phone and you're sitting not even 3 feet away from him, and he's critiquing you. So you could hear him without the phone call. He could just look at you and talk to you. That's how close we were to him. But he would make you pick up the phone and he would say, "Oh, you should have said this with more enthusiasm, and you should have done this, and you should have done that." And it was just so weird. I've never experienced anything like it. It was like I felt like I was on candid camera. It was super strange. So anyway, so that's the layout, just to give you an idea of how weird it was that this guy was calling us on the phone. We were all so close. So then once he gave you your critique, you're basically just supposed to say okay and then keep it going and you make the next phone call. And he wanted you to make calls back to back to back. If you got up to use the bathroom, you would get dirty looks. One of the employees had Crohn's disease and he would, say to her all the time, "Why do you need to use the bathroom 5 minutes before it's time to leave?" And he would just yell at her. So he eventually ended up firing her. How it worked there was, and I think how it works in sales in general is, you have X amount of time to go through training where you kind of get a little leeway for not making sales. And then you have, I'd say, like a quarter to close your first deal. And if you don't, you're out. With the exception of higher ticket items, something that would cost $500,000 to sell or something, you're not getting kicked out that fast. But you do have to show like some real progress that you're on your way towards making a sale that year. Anyway, in this particular position, I'd say you'd get like 3 months to close a deal, and otherwise you were out. I kind of felt that, so I knew I had to make a sale, and 2.5 months in, I did end up making a sale, which bought me some time. The the lady that sat next to me, she didn't make any sales, and I think she just ended up quitting. I can't remember if no, she did, she quit. And then the other lady with the Crohn's disease, she did actually make a big sale before I started there, but she ended up getting fired. It was another one of those, she annoyed him, so he let her go type of deal. Anyway, I tell you all this to say, I knew immediately when I started working there that it was a trash job because what I like to do is I like to sit with certain people on lunch breaks. I look at people's body language. I look at how they kind of deal with the job. It's not about what people say, it's what people don't say. At this particular company, a few of the employees would go out on a smoke break. There was a picnic table outside. So I started going out there pretty quickly just to talk to everybody and hang out. So it was like a few employees from this company. Then there were a couple from an accounting firm in the building, and then a few from other places. That's when I started getting the tea and finding out, oh, I need to get an exit strategy going and get out of here pretty quickly. I could tell this is a horrible place to be. Nobody likes this guy. He's even giving people who are good salespeople a hard time, and everybody's looking to run to the door. So, long story short, after the one girl who made the highest sale, who had the Crohn's disease, got fired, the other lady ended up leaving. I was there, so then he became hyper focused on me. And honestly, I wanted nothing to do with him and I wanted nothing to do with the company. So I did not have an exit strategy. And I left because I said to myself, it's not worth my mental health to be here at this absolutely horrendous company. And I ended up leaving. So get this, when I told him I was leaving, I had to do what they called an exit interview, which is not an exit interview. I can tell you firsthand, this was not that. I go in the office. He gives me a piece of paper to sign, you know, letting him know that I'm terminating. And he stares at me like the whole time I'm signing this paper and he's just staring. And he goes, did the other lady get you a job somewhere? Did she recruit you? And I said, well, no, but I mean, that's none of your concern anyway. I just want to make sure that I get my last paycheck. And he stared at me and he said, well, I know that you guys were talking outside about this, and it looks like she's been plotting for a while to leave here. Apparently, you were too. Like, let it go, dude. Like, it's amazing watching somebody lose control in real time. It's almost like he got off being in control of people because he was such a horrible manager and even horrible, a worse person. He was absolutely horrendous. And watching him lose control because I was walking out of the door was the best feeling of my entire life. I'll never forget it. I felt 10 years younger immediately. I felt the weight fall off of my shoulders. And sometimes it just happens like that, where you have to focus on your mental health and how you're feeling and just let the cards fall where they may. What's funny is, so then I walk outside, I quit, right? So I'm leaving. The top saleswoman follows me out. She's talking to me in the parking lot. She's asking me questions. She's like, "Hey, if you hear of any places that are hiring, let me know." She told me exactly what she needed, what salary what her salary range was. She told me what kind of benefits she was looking for, what industries she was looking for. Do you know this fool walked out of the door, acted like he was walking to his car, and stared both of us down? And I was like, you better get upstairs because he thinks that people are recruiting him out of here, and he is just an absolute weirdo. So the takeaway from this is, when you get that feeling when you first start a job and you immediately get that ick and you're in training, it's time to go. And I made the mistake of sticking around when all the red flags were up and I didn't leave. I stuck it out and that was a mistake. So, when you get that gut feeling that you're not in a good place, you start looking around, you can read people's body languages, you can hear what people are saying, you can see what people are not saying. You know that it's time to leave and don't stick around any longer if you can help it. Because that that was a mess. I mean, now looking back at it, knowing that I stayed as long as I did, I would never do that today. That was just a lesson that I learned, that I stayed 3 months too long. And now I would never, ever even entertain anything like that. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And that's all for now.